sites, I think, have a slightly different touch to them than commercial sites. So don't be afraid to put yourself out there and say, here's the stuff I'm struggling with.
SEO is a personality killer when it comes to content. So yeah, like in a space like yours, your personality is going to need to shine.
Wouldn't on a corporate site you still do that storytelling, albeit in a different way to a certain extent? I mean, if I come and I'm buying widgets, and why should I buy your widgets? Who the hell are you? What quality do you have? Who have you sold to? You know, what's your reputation? Right. I think the same thing kind of holds true. People are investing time in your site. They're not bouncing off. Who are you? What's your story? You know, why should I be interested? And I think I agree with what they say, that if it's blank, then I think you're more likely to bounce because there's no basis for trust to build.
And even small businesses. My wife runs a small business, and we're originally from up in Boston, and she'll get people who will contact her and say, I need your services, and I like that you're from Massachusetts, so am I. Right, so even on a commercial scale, it can have an impact. You know, that we all want to feel like we're part of something, even if it's as stupid as we're from the same state. We have nothing else in common, but now we're down here in North Carolina, but at one point, we lived within 500 miles of each other. So we're practically BFFs. It doesn't make any sense, but it works.
It can work both ways too. Like, oh my God, that's awesome.
Next.
New Yorkers.
Next.
What scares or concerns you the most about things the search engines are doing, the directions that they're going as an SEO?
You mean besides the massive data collection that Google does?
Yeah. Oh, so yeah, not on a personal. As a working SEO, so what things keep you up at night? What things do you worry about if they're doing directions and changes that they're doing? What those concerns in mind?
One of the things that Patrick wrote down, and really the biggest concern, not so much for my current job, but for search engines in general, is their ability to completely take something over. So if you type in, what's the weather, Google tells you. What time is it? Google tells you. How much is a franc worth, which is a euro worth today? Google tells you. I need a hotel in Atlantic City. Google tells you. So that's something that I think is just going to get, as Google gets bigger and more powerful, that's just going to be more and more swallowed up.
Yeah, I think as an SEO, I'm concerned about that, but as a user, I'm like, that's what I want.
Right.
So why are they not doing that? They should do that.
It's funny, when Rand was here, he was, Rand Fishkin, for those of you that weren't here, he had a very large soapbox that he was on about how Google's stealing our traffic, and 0 clicks and those sorts of things, which I totally understand and respect the viewpoint. But ultimately, like as a user, like if I'm looking for something and Google gives it to me instantly, like that's what I want in a search engine, and I don't care about the webmaster who like built the tool 5 years ago that made it possible for us to automate what time it is in Australia right now. So like the fact that it's delivered to me directly in search result doesn't bother me. With the BERT models, and as they've been able to, consume all of this information, like there's nothing that prevents Google from writing completely new, never before seen blocks of content about specific topics that express everything that you would need to know without any attribution to the webmaster because it's all original content. Like that scares me, like as an SEO who is responsible for getting more traffic to my client sites. But ultimately, and this is the big transition that I've been working on a number of clients lately, is like ultimately it's not like traffic is not a KPI. We, as SEOs, we've always said like the number of visitors to your site is not a KPI. It's the interactions that they take when they get there that is a KPI, unless you're selling advertising. So for us, it's about like how do we present content in a way that gets user like into the funnel, and so it's a little bit stressful when like how to do routing on a circuit board or something like that is now like written in an answer box,
right?
And like they no longer like come to our site and like get that first exposure for our brand and that sort of thing. Like that's painful. But those users are still entering a funnel. Just the top of the funnel is now in Google directly, and like they're going to follow up with another query if they're interested, and like Google can't answer all of the questions.
Yeah.
So but at the end of the day, like even if like I'm a hotel, like if people are booking a hotel through Google and never land on the hotel or your website, like I sold a room, that's my KPI. Like I'm booked.
Unless you're
That's
the
my
SEO
KPI.
Travelocity.
Yeah, well, real world travel agencies had to experience the same thing that online travel agencies are dealing with now.
Yeah.
And like it's not Google's responsibility to keep an industry alive.
But as SEOs, I think that's a concern we have, is the graphs that Google continues to make.
So maybe the question would be like, what kind of new value can you provide if you're an SEO or a company or you're not a website, what kind of new value can you provide in that role? Or that's changed. Some of the standard things that we used to do for your traffic and
If you're booking or your Travelocity, you're just screwed right now. Like there's nothing you can do. Google just killed like half the traffic to that whole industry. It's the same with like alternative medicine sites and stuff too. Like with the whole, like now they're promoting more medical health rather than alternative medical health. Yeah, which again, as a user and with my beliefs, that's great. Someone else's beliefs, maybe not so great. But honestly, there's nothing I think that people can do at this point. That's just where they're going. They're going to an answer engine. They're going to more trusted answers because, I mean, honestly, it's your money, your life parties. People's lives are on the line. Like people are complaining about some of the flu search results and how like, oh, you're just hot tea, blah blah blah. And, well, that wasn't exactly it, but like a bunch of herbal remedies and stuff. And honestly, Google's answer was like people die from the flu, and that is absolutely true. It's not something to take lightly.
I think travel agencies are really good, like sector to look at because like. Yes, while it makes sense that like booking and Travelocity, like their traffic's gonna plummet because like the unique value they offered is no longer unique, right? So those businesses as an SEO, I feel like it's our responsibility to say like, okay, well your business model has to. I'm doing a lot more of that as a consultant. Like your business model has to change. We had a client. You were with us when we had the client that did time. They were competing with Time Indeed. We told them like, hey, like you need to now build a new business model because just telling people what time it is in another time zone isn't going to work, right? Like that's great, but like it's gone. So
like much of a walled garden.
Yeah. And so like even for travel agencies, it's like okay, yeah, like I can book 100 different ways, but like now I want like custom trip planning. Like I want you to tell me all the destinations. I want you to help me come up with the right times to go there. I want reward points. Like you have to come up with other ways to incentivize me as a user to need a service that is now like it's just like a basic piece of information that I can get. And that was like when the internet came about, it flattened the world in that regard. And now with Google kind of taking over in its own way, like it's an Amazon, it's flattening the world again to where like you have to truly have something unique and valuable and special to offer until they figure out how to take that from you. And then you're gonna have to come up with something else.
Using that example, do you think the same thing's going to happen to like the recruiting sites?
Sure.
Or
there's already Google Jobs.
Absolutely.
There is Google Jobs, but how many people know about it? How many people say might already like just logged into LinkedIn because they see that as
they'll promote it more eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll get there. And,
well, the other thing too is
Google already like getting in that niche. Microsoft bought LinkedIn.
Yeah. Or would they say the other thing, where some of the sites like say Glassdoor allow more of a user community to dig deeper and get some information on the company? Or are they going to try to do that, where they're going to try and say add reviews now, not just of like, B2C and storefront type businesses, but B2B and.
Well, they already do that a little bit where they'll scrape reviews from other places. If you put in, mellow mushroom, it'll say Google reviews gives it so many reviews. Here's how it looks on Facebook, and here's how it looks on.
But are they going to do that for IBM?
I think any aggregator platform is like, a soon-to-be defunct model, unless they can add something. Like if you're aggregating reviews, or aggregating jobs, or aggregating restaurants, I don't care. If you're trying to organize information, Google can do it better.
Yeah.
Like it is just a matter of time before they care enough
And they got more
to
search.
take it from. Yeah, and they've got more data for all of it, and they'll do a better job. And they get.
Or they hire people to source the data and those people steal the data. Did anyone hear
Lyrics? Lyrics, anyone?
Yeah,
Go for it.
Was it Genius, I think?
Yeah.
Yeah, they invented like a Morse code thing that like catch Google stealing the lyrics and showing them in the featured snippets, which are what show at the top. So people are Googling song lyrics. There they are, but stolen from another site when supposedly Google's buying it from another source. And then there was a second part to that, like they exposed the one, but then they realized they were still stealing them. And they had a second like encoded message.
Well, and I think the argument they made was the person we're getting this from must be stealing your information, which is like I mean that is like the core. Like when author rank, which Mark, when Google Plus first started, like one of the cool ideas behind it was that like an actual creator of content might be able to digitally sign that content in a way that it's like permanently associated with an entity, with a person. And obviously Google Plus is now a G Suite only product, which I've recently started playing with, and it's kind of fun.
A social network with no friends.
Social network with only coworkers.
Only coworkers, aka no friends.
Chat. AKA not social. Work.
It's chat.
It is chat, but it is a better way. It is like better organized than Slack, for example, for like company bullshit chat, right? Like it's a good place for that. You should probably work for your own company. Or Phil. Sorry. P guy. Then you can do all kinds of stuff on company time.
That's true. Somebody else has got a good question. I can feel it. Yes. Going from that side.
I'm another newbie. I recently left the company I was with for 20 years, started my own company, and 95% ready to launch a website. Did it through Squarespace, and know very little about SEO. What I'm gathering from this conversation, thinking that I might be making a mistake.
With Squarespace in
No,
particular?
with the content of my website. My core customers would be pharmaceutical, biological, and medical device manufacturing companies. That's what I've been doing for the last 20 years. Those are life sciences companies. And I've been using life sciences throughout my website. Talking about services, talking about equipment I'm selling, so on and so forth. But life sciences is a very broad term that could relate not only to the guys that are making tablets and syringes and injection devices, which is my specialty. It could also mean bioagriculture, healthcare providers, any number of things. So, just to bounce this off of you guys, should I be going in wherever I'm putting life sciences and instead pharmaceutical manufacturing?
Talk about it naturally.
I
Talk about it naturally.
I don't think that's going to be the big crux for you. It's going to be the other stuff that you said, the individual products and stuff. How you talk about them? Like I wouldn't worry about like saying life sciences or pharmaceutical, whatever. Probably not going to make much of a difference.
Okay. One of the best things you can do is record your phone conversations with your cold calls or whatever. Record those conversations where you introduce like, this is who I am, this is the products, like how you find out what their needs are, and you discuss like how you can solve that problem for them. And like that's your website copy. Like round one, that is your copy. And it's polishing it for voice and that type of thing later. But start out with just like what is your natural sales pitch to an individual, and like you're going to find that the language you use, the nomenclature that you have in that specific conversation is going to translate directly to what your customers are likely searching for as well. And you're going to be able to give that context that Google needs to know what you're actually about without confusing them with random things like life sciences. You never actually use that phrase when you're talking to somebody.
Yeah, the problem with that, and actually Jairus back there, yeah, this is a big guy. He has there he is. I knew he was there somewhere. He did a talk about like call a thing what it is, and that's where people go wrong. Is they make up their own term for something, they make up their own cutesy name. It's just call it what it is, call it what everyone else calls it, and you'll be okay. Like just don't. If you want to be creative, they want to make it their own, they want to brand it their own thing. Just whatever terms, whatever nomenclature people use that.
I'll tell you the best advice I ever got about a website was from an old boss of mine who said there's one page on our website called About Us, everything else should be about them. And that really stuck with me because that is the truth. They don't want to know about you, they want to know how you can help them. So.
And one other quick question, just out of curiosity. These website or these services like Squarespace, they always advertise built-in search engine optimization. From your opinion or experience, that's total BS.
The main thing is your content. Like, none of the platforms are all that bad. They're somewhat limiting at a certain point, but you're just starting out, I'd say they're totally fine.
Mm-hmm.
Like until you're doing something fancy, creative, you're more than likely okay. You'll probably won't have some control. Well, actually, I was trying to think. Squarespace, I think, has code injection and a bunch of stuff. So I was trying to think like site speed and all, but there's a lot of things you could do there.
Yeah, I mean, it's been extremely helpful just from the standpoint that my business is mostly a relationship built business. I just want to have like a shorthand to tell all the people that I already know who might be
Just need a place to send them.
That's the place to send them, and contact, and there'll be some more complicated stuff that I'm not going to do down the road. But right now, I think it's basically complicated.
Yeah, my opinion on that typically varies on your long-term goals, right? Anytime you're starting out, like it's as simple as it can be for you to get something out, like that's what's best, right? In 6 months, 12 months, like you can always rebuild your site, like maybe think about, how portable your content is. So like in an early stage platform, you want to know that you'll be able to get that content out into a new platform if you decide to change down the road. Most of them, it's not that hard to do. I mean, worst case scenario, you can hire somebody to scrape your content back out of it. So just, being mindful that what is going to give you the tools you need to create your content and get it live is most important, because you could get like a fancy WordPress install, or you can use Wix or whatever. Like all of them have their pros and cons, but what makes it most easy for you so that you don't get, overwhelmed by just getting your content out. I think that's what's going to help you the most. Like down the road, you'll have customers and clients and budgets. You can pay somebody else to fix your website.
Yeah, keep it separate. Somebody from that table ask a question.
No!
Come on.
Wow, okay.
We just go right around this room.
Bill's going to get aggressive. Yeah, somebody wearing a red vest. Is anybody wearing a red
Anyone
vest?
in a red vest, anyone.
That wants
I
to
do
ask
like
a
the
question?
idea of combative Dude, ask me a question right now. We do have a question.
If you're not asking a question, I assume you know everything when it comes to the
That's it, absolutely. They came here to observe and learn, but for folks who are working in SEO related companies, what kind of jobs are there in the structure? What kind of jobs are there we have? We just it's put a bunch of words on a page and searchers find it, or where are they finding it?
That's actually, I think, underlying a really great question, because one of the things that has changed significantly over the last year are the types of careers in SEO. I don't think there's enough conversation around the fact that 3 years ago, 5 years ago, like what generalist like you could be like, you just kind of needed to know SEO. Whereas now, like we've got, varying levels of technical SEO, local SEO, video SEO, content strategy, link strategy, and all of these things are incredibly fragmented. It's important that you know, like, if you're running like as a marketing director, or like in my case, I run a team, I have to know enough about all those things that nothing fails. But it's important that you're working with people who are specializing. I think that's one of the shifts that we're seeing in the industry is that as each of these changes happen, it spawns an incredible amount of information and experimenting that you almost have to be siloed to keep up with it. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on just jobs.
Yeah, I mean, there's a place for generalists, there's a place for specialists. It's always mixed.
I think content people who have an understanding of SEO are at a huge advantage when they move to the online world. So at a big company like IBM, we have people who've been writing for 30 years, way before the web, and they still write that same way, when they learned and cut their teeth. But writing for the web is different. So understanding that how you write has an impact on whether people ever find your content is a different generation for copywriters. And there's a bright line between people who know it and people who don't, at least to us, to the nerds. We can spot it pretty easily. Did you say you had something coming in?
Misha had a question for us.
Two questions. One is a friend of mine who's a hair salon. So I'm curious about Google My Business and how to advise her on. She's completely zero on digital marketing. She's just a store owner. And my second question is, with building an asset that's like a database, searchable, so that you can get away from the zero click to your site. Would that be a good play to overcome some of the challenges of Google providing content? My ultimate goal is to actually sell through LinkedIn. It's a career-related site. So one question for me.
I'll take the Google My Business one just at the very beginning. 2 years ago, every month, I would send out emails to all my wife's customers who used her services and say, hey, leave us a review on Google if you liked it. So she does about 5 jobs a week, 250 emails went out, we got 1 review. This year, I switched, and now every couple of weeks, someone sends text messages to them. And every couple of weeks, we get 3, 4, 5 reviews. And what that taught me is, make it easy, again, on the end users who are already on their phone, they click it, they're already logged into Google, all that stuff. So for the Google My Business, I think reviews are important. People look at that generally, and it helps a little bit in where you show up in those local map boxes. So I would pass that along to her as kind of works better than an email or review us on Google sticker on the door or any of that stuff, is to put it right in somebody's hand.
She did, I started the reviews at the salon, and one went from one, she had really negative reviews from a competitor who was trying to get out of business. So it went from 1.8 to 0.6. She never asked for a review, she started asking for already in like a week. I wrote there from the text.
And your second question was, if you have a database of information, and you're wanting to be able to present that without Google turning it into a position 0 result.
Yeah, so to get traffic to my site, I came up with the idea of doing like a database play. And it would be free, and then you could pay membership to get some additional data. So
you're offering data in like a freemium model.
Yeah.
Or like some data, like something like Ahrefs might do. You're like, here's some data. You want the rest of the data set.
Exactly. And so it's a website that helps you with very in-depth about feeling. If you want to get into visual special effects, it's got exactly which positions people are unable to hire for, and SEO, which jobs are really hard to hire for. So it's proprietary information, but the general information is all available for free, but because we get access to a lot of data, Google cannot really duplicate it easily, it's a database, but I'm worried that it may just be a shorter term strategy. But then they'll come in and create their own database on the same subjects.
I mean, I'm assuming this data is unique data that you have. Is it easily reproducible? Like, are you just scraping this data from somewhere?
It's all unique interviews and like surveys, questionnaires, people who are practitioners in each field. So like for SEO, I won't be talking to you guys. So Google would have to find someone like you to pull that data together.
Good.
And it's very painstaking, but once you collect it, it's very valuable.
Yeah, I think you have kind of a walled garden there that it's work. No one else has that. Like if they wanted that, the license it from you. If you say no, then what can they do?
Yeah, I mean, attracting the traffic and offering some of the data. I mean, any of the data providers out there, like they provide a sample of the data and that sort of thing. But more importantly, the successful ones create a lot of content about what you can do with that data and what problem that data solves.
Yeah.
So it's easy to say, like, if only you had, a list of all of the links pointing back to your website, you could, look for toxic links, you could look for link opportunities, if you could look at competitors, you could do X, Y, and Z. You could do all of those things where you present your value to the user without providing, the data, right? There's the walled garden. You say, here's all these cool things you can learn. Click here to get the data behind this report or what have you. So I don't think that's necessarily like strategically that's a novel concept. You can probably find some really good examples of other companies that are also data providers and how they do it. Most all of it's going to be content strategy around your value proposition.
Yeah.
And examples, like you can pull like some case studies or like open up like a segment of data just to prove your point.
Yeah.
In a less competitive space, just because you can say like, here's what you're missing, and they can see that without actually getting that information about SEO or whatever type of job you're talking about.
Yeah, and I think the SEO benefit comes from when you do that, write a report or whatever, and it's this is groundbreaking information that hasn't been available before. The links that come in is what is going to drive you up.
Yeah.
The link building on those types of plays is also really helpful because you can do the quick excerpt. So like in your content when you're talking about like the latest in the SEO industry, blah blah blah, then you can have your stats in there. There would be like a quotable that somebody would want to put in a deck, in a presentation or something, where you could say like 67% of X Y Z, and you can give that information, and then for the data that backs it up, click here, and you have to pay to see the full report. So you can provide enough information that like you inspire people, you give them things they want to share without giving away the house.
Thanks.
So, one two-part question to wrap it up. What is, in 2019, the most surprising thing that you saw in SEO? And in 2020, what is the thing that you're most looking forward to that you expect to happen on the horizon this year?
I can't say there's much that Google does that's terribly surprising. Anymore. Been on the same trajectory.
Interesting.
For a long
The
time.
the tags for links, like the Raleigh
Yeah.
sponsor, the UGC, whatever.
Changes.
Yeah, the no follow changes. I think was the most surprising because I feel like it starts a pattern for Google to be able to extract intent behind links. It requires adoption for them to be able to get anything out of it, but there's enough, FUD running around link campaigns in general. Why don't you're going to be better than I am, without question. Yeah.
So they had link attribute they call no follow. Basically for them, they fully respected it to say that I'm not going to count any signals like page rank or anchor text or anything through this, and I'm literally not going to crawl from that link to this other link. For them, that was a big miss, I think. That's been around since like 2006 or 7.
Well, and I think it's important to, so like the premise behind this was that there may be times that you as a webmaster link to someone else, but you don't want to actually vouch for that someone else. So like there are some like legitimate ways that happens, for example, like in comments. Like, so you have a WordPress site, someone can leave a comment and they link to like their website on their name. And like you don't want to pass authority from your site to, Joe's Porn Shack, because that's what he decided to use as his username website when he left this very helpful comment that your website was great. And so like as by default, like WordPress now like just like no follows comments, so that any comment on your site that link out your website doesn't basically validate or provide any sort of weighting or value to that third party. And so that was one of the big reasons why nofollow existed. And then they threw in things like if there's an ad, so if somebody pays you for a link, you're supposed to nofollow it in order for it to not be a link scheme. And suddenly the nofollow tag started getting used very broadly. I think that's what you're saying. They kind of
overly broad. In fact, like sites like Wikipedia, they nofollow all external links. A lot of news sites started nofollowing all external links, and now because Google's not allowed to crawl it by their own rules that they made, they estimate that they're missing half the websites on the web. For a search engine, that's ridiculous. That's not something they want to do. But yeah, the other changes, they added sponsored. So if you have a sponsored post, you can now say like this is sponsored, a sponsored link. Someone bought this link. UGC is user-generated content. So again, like blog comments, you could say like, I do not vouch for this content. Someone else wrote this content, and they included a link to somewhere else that I don't really vouch for. They're completely optional values, but I think they'll help Google understand like what links they should value and what links they shouldn't value moving forward. Right?
Yeah, exactly. So, and my thought, like, that was just sort of somewhat radical, I think, or unexpected from my viewpoint, because I just assumed that Google was just going to naturally devalue links and start just choosing whether or not they cared about a nofollow. Instead, they made nofollow, they gave webmasters the opportunity to be more specific so that they could, I guess, more easily decide whether or not they wanted to ignore passing value through your nofollow tags. I didn't expect that. So I'm really curious as to how that's going to affect the link graph in the long run, and whether or not ultimately we're going to end up having just like these relevant attributes for all links, regardless of whether or not we follow it. So I think that would be my surprise.
Yeah.
Unexpected, I think, was the phrase. The thing you expected the least, didn't expect that.
Anything interesting or unexpected coming up in 2020 or that you're looking forward to?
Well, one thing that just happened, like I don't know if they finally went too far or not, but like last year they changed the mobile search results. So you had like the icon, the favicon logo, and then like the URL, blah blah blah, and the title below that. And they just did the same for desktop, and now I misclick stuff like crazy, which I'm sure everyone is. Like I'm really picky about not clicking ads because I'm an SEO and now I click ads because I can't tell the difference. And I don't know if they finally took it far enough for like the FCC or someone to slap them. So we'll see if they get in some trouble this year or not.
Yeah, I think a lot of the layout changes, I expect as a user that should get easier. But for some reason, it seems to be getting more and more convoluted.
Yeah, you can't tell them apart now. Again, it happened before. Actually, if anyone's old enough to remember, they used to have like a colored box behind the ads, and they changed the colors. They added yellow and pink, and on a high brightness monitor at one point, like it was white behind there, so you again could tell the difference between ads and organic. And it was like 2013, they got in a little trouble finally, and so they went with like a green ad label and stuff like that. But now I think they went too far again. I think they're going to get in trouble again just because they're trying to make more money from people clicking ads when not being able to tell the difference between ads and the organic.
Well, and because ads are starting to blend in with, like, not just like at the top of the page blending in, but in each of the search features.
Yeah.
they're pulling in ads in maps
In
listings.
the local.
They're pulling, so like all suddenly like ads are no longer top and bottom. Ads are kind of everywhere. And I think as a user, that's really frustrating because we're supposed to know when something is sponsored versus when something is not.
It's either someone will slap them with the penalty or like monetary, make them change it, or potentially another search engine will just be seen as having better results simply because you can tell what's an ad and what's not. And if you click some of the ads, you realize like that's not exactly what I wanted, and so it's not a good result for users. And I think there might be a breaking point where people start to break away from Google.
I'm curious to see how ADA gets treated by Google going into the next year. Like we're seeing more. Apparently there's a porn site, I think it's Pornhub, that just got sued because their videos don't have closed captioning. And so like there's been several lawsuits that have been filed and some being won over the last 6 months to a year with regards to websites being considered like a public space, and then webmasters are suddenly responsible for ensuring that we're compliant with the Americans with Disabilities Act. And so typically there are these sort of guidelines or ideas for user friendliness that Google just starts to bake in in this quick little moment. It's like HTTPS, mobile first, site speed, all these things that are like user accessibility, kind of based and focused concepts. And so I can easily see that like in the next 12 months, Google rolls out like an ADA update, and just sites that are ADA compliant get a natural boost because they can automate that. They can automate whether or not your site is compliant.
ADA being American with disabilities.
Americans with Disabilities Act. There's actually some like six-digit thing or something that goes with it, but essentially it's just whether or not you have things like you can tab through the content, and that your images have title text, and that you can fill out forms without having to use a mouse and things like that.
One of the things that I'll be watching this year, especially about Google, is the data privacy hammer that they keep getting beat with over in Europe, and is now starting to come to the US. California starting to do it. So that'll be interesting to see how that impacts. See how that impacts.
They're already using that to like push out third-party advertising networks and get more money for themselves.
Still be interesting to watch. But as far as algorithm stuff, I already think they're so far down the path that there won't be anything huge and groundbreaking. Just like the no-follow, it helps them find more sites, but to the average user using Google, it's probably not a huge leap. Because if they didn't find your site before, it's probably not the best site on the web anyway.
I just think it's interesting that as webmasters, I've talked to so many clients that think they should be number one, and like they should, right? Yeah, like I'm the best, and it's like, why are you the best? And they don't have a good answer for it, and their site sucks. So I think that just Google's getting better at vetting some of those things out, and like watch the forums and everything. Like there's always really good examples of Google totally screwing up, like showing something that's awful, as a result. But overall, the results are getting better, and there's a much higher standard for content and usability. So I don't think that there's going to be any drastic changes in terms of like how they operate. I think that every time they tweak the dial on something, it's a butterfly effect, and like suddenly big sites disappear, or they add a feature with travel sites, and then an entire industry just collapses on itself overnight. Those types of things should be expected.
I said one more thing for what happened last year that did surprise me. They lost part of their index. As far as I know, that's the first time that's ever happened. And I'm surprised they don't have like 50 bajillion redundancies to make that totally impossible. But they had indexing issues with news sites, with organic results, where like for days they weren't getting indexed, and literally they just lost like a week of data
I
or
just
something.
assume somebody unplugged something in the middle of a transfer
But like, how
to
does that
NSA, they were just like, whoop, just
redundant, like they have multiple servers around the world, and like you're querying each time, and all those have their own databases and backups, and like I don't know how they actually lost an entire section without having like 70 redundancies all over the world. I was really surprised. I don't think they ever really explained that very well, but.
I mean, did they say that they lost it across all redundancies, or just that they lost it in the primary index? I mean, it's quite possible that they just lost it in the primary index and had to like revert to something wrong.
But it's I don't know. I think
It seems like it should be.
It's them kind of showing like they're human. They're not necessarily a startup. They're a big company now. There's gonna be gaps. There's gonna be things that happen. Stuff like that though, I think can make people lose trust. Except I don't think anyone outside of the SEO world even knew that happened. But it's as far as I know, that's the first time in their existence anything like that has happened.
There's enough results that half the internet could get deleted, and Google would still show enough that people would be happy with what they get.
It's true. They probably only need like 5% of the sites to show good results anyway.
As long as Amazon's on it. Amazon and Wikipedia.
All right, thanks, guys. So we've got the room until 8. We've got drinks and food still. Hang out, socialize, ask any questions you want to ask in front of the group. Thank you very much for coming out, everyone. Thank you.
Facebook and Google.
Of course, I would be the one who needs several quarters. Why not? It's Matthew's fault. I blame him. This is who's full of influence. You called it casting couch, so I had to make one of them. That's what happened.
Windex on that couch.
Some guy named Frank opens up his laptop and says this. Go. Did you go? Do you feel violent?
Yeah. We just went offline.
Okay. Yes, totally violated.
I need to. They can say, when my